What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to change the upper control arm and lower ball joint on this 03 F150 Harley Davidson edition. It's the same on any F150 or on the same era. It's pretty easy to do. I'll show you how to get the upper one off, lower one off, press the old one out, press the new one in, put it all back together. Some simple steps to get it done pretty easily, and make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let's get to the action. Alright, first step, we need to get this cotter pin out of the tie rod and get the tie rod separated. So let's get that done. I always unscrew these things all the way off and then screw them back on. That way you can get it to come off while this is still seated in the knuckle. Now we got to separate that. For that, I use a 3-pound sledgehammer. And you just make sure you don't hit the rotor or the backing plate. Just like that. And we did not tear the boot up by doing that, so we can reuse this. Now, take that out. Put the nut back on it so you don't damage the threads or lose it. Just like that. And make sure it's decently tight. So if you need to replace it, you can do that while you've got it off. That one's fine. Alright, the next thing we need to do is get the brake caliper off and the speed sensor line that is connected up in here somewhere. Oh. There it is. Okay. Gonna undo this clip right here. And then we can take this and just wrap it around out of the way. So let's get this clip taken off. Okay, we got the speed sensor line unhooked, unclipped from the control arm, and it's just wrapped down here out of the way. Now we need to take a wrench and take the brake caliper off. Now, there is a clip down here on the lower control arm. We need to undo this so this can hang down. And with that clip out, as long as you're sitting on the ground doing this, I do have a jack stand back here. So make sure you get your car on a jack stand. But with that clip off, you've got enough room in the line for that to just sit there. Make sure you take your brake pads off and set them somewhere safe so they don't get tore up. Okay, we got our brake pads off. Our ABS wire needs to go back over here. We're just tucking this in somewhere so it's out of the way. Doesn't really matter where you put it. Okay, next thing we need to do, we've got to get the cotter pin out of here, and the cotter pin out of the lower one. So, we'll get these cotter pins pulled out. Now, the reason you put cotter pins in is because this thing just moved when I was pulling that out. See? This bolt was not tight enough to begin with, but that's why you put cotter pins in, for safety. Okay, let's get the bottom one out. Okay, we've got the upper and the lower cotter pins out, so now we need to separate the ball joints. You need to make sure you got a jack under this thing. It's got a shock in here bolting it in, so the spring's not going to fly out or anything like that. But it's easier to work on this stuff if you've got this lower control arm pressed up a little bit. So I've got the jack secured under here on a lip. Got some pressure on it. And now we're going to get a socket and separate this one up here. Get it loosened, get this control arm out of here. Then we'll get the bottom one off, bust it loose, and take the whole spindle off. So let's get this upper one taken off. Okay, so I told you about the cotter pin and this nut being too loose. So normally this is going to be seated in here and solid. You're going to take this socket, extension, swivel, whatnot, take it off, tighten it back up a little bit, and then you're going to smack right here with your hammer. Find my hammer. Just like so. But you're going to hit it as hard as you can. And that will separate it. But this has already been separated. You can see that control arm coming up as I'm loosening it. That's not supposed to be that way. This should be solid in here. You take this all the way off, screw it back on about halfway, and then you can separate it, and then you can pull these apart. But since it's already loose, I'll show you how we go about separating it. All you gotta do is push down. Now I can take... You can also loosen these nuts up, so this thing will just kind of fall down. But and there's the upper one. Okay, now that we got the upper control arm separated from the spindle, we got to take this nut off, slide the bolt out, take this nut off, slide the bolt out. It's just tight. That's the only reason it's got tension on it, so you don't have to worry about anything. So, use this. Now the bolt's spinning, so we're going to have to put a wrench on the other side. Now this bolt can come out. There is a little plate on the side here, so if it falls off, make sure you pick it up, and that is your alignment plate. Let's get the one over here taken out. Not sure what we're stuck on over here. It should just come out. Oh, let me go get a bar. Alright, so this is giving us a fit coming out, so just got a pry bar in here. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to come out. It should just slide right out. But there's the upper control arm and ball joint. So now we just need to get the bottom one separated and get the spindle off. Alright, we gotta get this. Set that out of the way. Get this nut off. See, that's seated on there so it won't just fall off. Now, take it all the way off so it cleans the threads. Now, just going to screw it back on a little bit. Get our hammer again. And now, we got to hit right here. be in a fit. There it went. That's why you put the nut back on the bottom. That just falls, sits on the nut, pick it up, screw the nut, and take the spindle off. Okay, now we got to get ball joint out, pressed out. First thing you got to do, if it has grease certs, got to get the grease cert out. Throw it out of the way. There is a snap ring. Take that off, throw it away, and now a combination of cups, and a standard ball joint press. Goes on like so. Okay, and now press it through. You see it start to move, and most likely it's going to press real hard and then it's going to pop and make a loud banging noise. So don't jump when it happens if you've never done it. Just like that. New one going in. Fairly easy process. Oh. This cup sits in there. Goes in there. I'm gonna find my receiver cup. There it is. Receiver cup sits on top. All right, everything is tight and centered up. Now, I do this in small bursts. I don't ever just hold on the trigger. I always just give it light taps and it'll pop it in and pop it in until it just seats all the way. You can hear it clicking and popping as it presses through the ball, or the ball joint presses through the control arm. You can see it jumping as it does it. I think we're seated. I'm just checking the lip all the way around it to make sure that it's seated on the bottom. Take all that out of the way. Take our new snap ring. Cert. Don't over tighten those because you will snap them off. They just have to be slightly snug. But with that, ball joint is pressed in and done. Now we can go back together with the rest of it. First step, don't drop it. Pick up the spindle, slide it on. If you hold out on this, it'll stay up on the ball joint once you get it slid on, and then you can put the nut on. And the upper control arm goes on next. This side is just stiff over here. It should just slide in like that. There we go. Just slide it up, slide it through. Here's one of the plates that I was talking about. It's got a little tab over here when you get the bolt through. This will slide onto the bolt. There's a little tab that it goes up against, and that gives you a factory alignment spot. And there's the other plate. Put those on. Make sure it's pushed all the way back against those tabs. And that gives you the factory alignment, so you don't have to have it realigned. Okay. Now those are just tight, finger tight, so I can move it. Now I'm going to push the spindle back up. Push that through. New ball joint nut. Okay. Now that everything is tight or secure together, tighten the lower ball joint bolt. And now we just have to, it's tight, so now we're going to tap on it until we get the nut, the castle nut, rolled around. So I have a clear opening to put a cotter key in. Always use a new cotter pin. Goes through, bend it down and under. That is done. Need to make sure we put some grease in it, but the lower one is done now. All right, same thing with the upper one. There. And that. And that. New grease cert in the top. Like I said, just snug those up. They do not have to be super tight. You will break them. All right. Now we need to tighten down the upper control arm bolts. Some grease put in here. Some grease put in the bottom. Nope, and of course I just ran out of grease. All right, we got a new tub of grease. So let's get bottom filled up. All right, we got the lower ball joint greased. Make sure we got a cotter pin in it. Upper ball joint is greased. Got a cotter pin in it. These are tight. And the ball joints are completely done, and the control arm is done at that point. It is all done and secure. So now we have to make sure we put the brakes back on, brake caliper, tighten the line back down. We got to put the tie rod end back on, make sure we hook the speed sensor back up. And that'll be about it. So let's get the brakes put back on. Don't forget your brackets for the line. Okay, that's everything on this side. Now, I need to hook the speed sensor back up. All right, last step we need to do is put the tie rod back on. Now just tighten it a little bit at a time until you get it lined up. We'll use a new cotter pin. Needs to be tightened a little more. There we go. And just like that, upper control arm and ball joint, lower ball joint is all done. And we are all back together, ready to put the wheel back on it and set it on the ground. There you go. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends.